We're making miso glazed salmon for this episode of the meal prep series. It tastes absolutely delicious, it's super easy to make, and all of the nutrition values are in the video. To start, we'll make our miso glaze. This right here is 150 grams of white miso paste, which is a fermented soybean paste, and it's really easy to get. Then we're going to add in 80 milliliters of mirin and 60 milliliters of soy sauce for umami and depth. 20 grams of brown sugar to help caramelization. This is optional if you don't want to add it. 15 grams of ginger, which can be run along a microplane to create a paste. And finally, ground white pepper to taste, or just a few little sprinkles worth. With that all in the bowl, get in there with a whisk, break this up, mainly concentrating on the ginger and that miso paste because it will clump up. But once this is smooth, we can then just pop this aside for 2 seconds, just whilst we get out our salmon. And these right here are 250 gram fillets, or all up 1.2 kilos worth. Use your clean hands or a spoon, whatever you have, just to mix this through. Gently rub that marinade all over the salmon, making sure it's nice and completely coated. Then we can let this marinate for about 30 minutes up to 24 hours. Whilst the salmon is marinating, I like to prepare the vegetables. Here is 2 heads of broccoli. What we're going to do is stand this up just to make it a bit easier to work with. Then just use a small knife to just separate those florets. We want to then make sure each of the florets are the same size. That way they'll all cook at the same time. Also, we don't want to throw the stalk away because we will be using this. Just remove the end piece because it can be a bit scabby. Then all we're going to do is slice this in half, slice each half into thirds, and then just evenly cut these up. Pretty much the same size as the florets, that way they'll all cook at the same time. Next is 2 medium to large size carrots. You don't have to peel these, just make sure you give them a nice wash. Then slice off the stalk end, slice them in half, and then on a slight angle, just thinly slice these into nice even sized strips. You can also just cut it any way you like. For a garnish, I'm using 1 spring onion or scallion. Please don't go out and buy a whole bunch just to use one. It's up to you if you want to use these. I had them lying around. And with this, I'm just going to thinly slice it the whole way across, just into nice little circle pieces. Last but not least, we need 350 grams of green beans. You don't have to do anything to these other than just picking off the stem. Okay, whilst our salmon is still marinating, the vegetables are all prepared. Place a large pan or wok over a high heat. Add in 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of peanut oil. It's a nice neutral flavored oil. Then we can add in all of the vegetables, the broccoli, the carrots, the green beans as well. And I recommend hitting it up with some sea salt flakes to taste, as well as a little bit of ground white pepper. You can also use cracked black pepper here as well if you wanted to. Let's then saute these, or stir fry depending on if you're using a wok, just for about 6 to 7 minutes, not 67 minutes, just until they're nice and soft but still have that al dente bite to them, and also they've got that nice little char on them. We don't want to cook these the whole way through, otherwise it will just turn into a mush, especially when we reheat these as it's meal prep. Once that's achieved, we're going to add in 2 teaspoons or 10 milliliters of sesame oil for that nice nutty flavor, as well as 1.5 teaspoons or 5 grams of sesame seeds for color and a bit of texture. Then just check it for seasoning and adjust if necessary. Give it a quick mix through until everything's evenly combined. Then we can remove this on the stovetop, and these are the macros for the sesame vegetables, and the serving size is also on there. Alright, for the salmon, I recommend using a non-stick pan, that way we won't have any problems. Get this over a high heat. Place in about 1 tablespoon or 20 milliliters of peanut oil. Then if your salmon has skin on, unfortunately mine doesn't, place it skin side down, and I recommend doing this in batches. Then what we're going to do is just sear these for about 2.5 to 3 minutes, just until you get that beautiful golden char. Then we can flip these over, and what we're going to do now is just cook them for 2 minutes on all of the rest of the sides. We want this to be golden brown and slightly charred all over, similar to a blackened salmon or a blackened cod, but we're not going to go that far. Also, the times I'm telling you are for a medium to medium rare salmon. I find that's the best way to have salmon, but if you like this cooked completely through, I will leave details about that in the description, so make sure you go check that out. Anyway, once that is all done and you have beautifully cooked salmon, we can remove this on the stovetop, and these are the macros for the miso salmon alone, as well as the portion size. Now after the salmon's cooked, you will have some of that glaze left over. I recommend wiping the pan down as much as you can because you don't want any of that char in the sauce. Add the sauce into a pan that's over a medium heat, and what we're going to do now is just gently mix this through and cook it for about 2 minutes until it's nice and thick. Just make sure you keep it moving around though, because this can easily burn, and I recommend just bringing it to a boil and then turning it off the heat and just let it slowly cook that way. Also, you might be thinking that's not much sauce. This sauce right here is extremely powerful, so you don't want this to be drowning the salmon or the vegetables. As for serving up, portion everything, divide everything by 5 or weigh it all out as per the macro cards that I've supplied. Obviously this looks a little bit smaller because I'm using 1.3 litre containers this time, whereas I usually use 750 milliliters, and I recommend pouring the resting juices of the salmon into the sauce. Just give it a quick mix through, and then just put that glaze over the top. Garnish it with the spring onion or scallion we did before, if you wanted to use that. But what we've got then is these absolutely beautiful and delicious miso glazed salmon meal prep. As always, this is the complete dish macros, serving sizes, and everything mixed together, also including the oil. I had a comment about that the other day. And let these cool down for about 20 minutes before placing on the lids. Put them in the fridge for up to 3 days and in the freezer for up to 3 months. And the only thing that's left to do is, of course, we can then dig in. Miso salmon has to be one of my favourite meals of all time. The flavour in it just develops so well, and that salmon is beautiful. I've cooked this about medium to medium rare. Obviously, if you want it cooked the whole way through, just cook it for a bit longer. I'll leave details about that in the description. The vegetables are obviously optional as well. You can use rice. It's up to you how you want to put this together, but I feel like this combination right here is absolutely perfect without the overload on the carbs. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.